Hey, and just a quick reminder that the audio-only versions of these Vital MX interviews are available on the Vital MX podcast page. Search for it anywhere you get your pods and let your friends know about it. Hey guys, this is Darkside from Vital MX. Today, I have the owner of Dubya USA on the phone, Mr. John Anderson. What's going on, John?
How you doing, Jamie? Or do I call you Jamie or Darkside? I'm used to calling you Darkside.
Whatever you're comfortable with. I'll answer to either.
All right, sounds good, man. Well, I'm doing good, and it's good to catch up with you, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, fun. I always enjoy talking to you, and we're going to get into WUSA and everything that you've got going on. The World Vets coming up at Glen Helen, but I kind of want to start off. There's some guys that don't know a lot about you and the business, and I'd like to get some of your background. So I want to go back just to your childhood and how you got into the motorcycle. Into two wheels and racing, and where'd that start from?
Yeah, so, this is going to go back a ways, but yeah, just like all of us in this industry, I think that it's pretty much a common thing for people that work in the business now. We all started out as riders and then became racers, and I was the same, right? So, same thing. My dad took me riding, and then I got into racing, and I raced for quite some time, quite a while, and like a lot, unfortunately, in the sport, the downside of the sport is injuries, and I was one of those as well. No pity party or anything like that here, but I got hurt a lot, and we all do. But then I ended up I transitioned into, or that's kind of a weird thing to say these days, but got a job in the industry, if we will, yeah. Right? And that's probably skipping ahead a little bit, but yeah, man, just race, and I'm old enough now to say that I can relate when people talk about the old Saddleback Park, Indian Dunes, Escape Country. People on the East Coast might not remember some of those, but a lot of them they will. And the Anza Cycle Park, and kind of a cool time, man. I got to race all those places, and I'll always remember that with great memories. So. Yeah, I was just a racer and then worked my way into the business, I guess. Well,
when you were racing, like how far did you take it? You talked about injuries, but do you feel like minus the injuries, there could have been a career there, or maybe just a local pro, or like where were you at?
Yeah, so, it's funny. I did pretty decent for me. I mean, I did a lot of the night. You always hear, Jamie, the SoCal night racing scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those guys, right, where we did Ascot Park, and then we did OCIR on a Thursday night, Corona on a Friday, and then Saddleback on Saturday and Sunday. And I actually worked my way up, became a pretty decent intermediate. I did turn into a local pro, if you will. Didn't have a lot of success, but I got to race some little small supercross stuff, and I remember a race I got to do. It was kind of fun in San Bernardino, California, and I'll never forget being on the line, and Johnny Amara was on the line as well. And I just, those are all guys that I kind of grew up looking up to, So yeah, I mean, I did pretty good. I mean, I thought it was pretty good anyway. And then as you get going faster, that's when the injuries set in, right?
Sure.
So, I wasn't that today's world where the guys, they do these training camps and all that stuff, right? And these programs all over the country. That stuff wasn't around back then. So it was more just on my own, right? I kind of funded it myself. I had like a support ride with a local Honda shop, got a couple bikes and a parts allowance and stuff like that. But yeah, that was about it. It was pretty evident that, based off the support I didn't have, and I'm not blaming that for any reason and not being successful at it. But, I knew I just loved the sport, and that's one thing that hasn't changed over the years is the love for the sport, right? I'm
yeah.
Big fan today as I was back then, even as a racer,
That's the base for most of our passion, obviously, for this is just the love of the sport.
Yeah, for sure. So, it was a good time and a lot of fond memories of that time. And it does go back a long ways, but it's funny. I was thinking about it, knew we would be chatting, and I mean, from the time of, say, getting in the industry, and to today, it's going to date me a little bit here, Jamie, but 37 years now, man.
Oof.
And Yeah, I know, right? So it's been a long time. So
Yeah,
and it feels like it. But.
yeah, I understand that feeling. You talked about getting the transition to working in the industry. Was your first job at White Brothers for Tom White?
Well, in the industry, yes, it was.
Okay.
So prior to that, obviously, right, I did a little bit of work. I mean, like a lot of people out there, right, when you're not sure what you want to do, like I did all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Like I was racing, but I did a little bit of drywall stuff. Heck, at one point I even cleaned pools, right? I worked for my dad's company, and again, not to put a date on it, but back in the day when Cycle News was still a print magazine, a newspaper, really, right?
Yeah.
They had a section in there for help wanted, and man, that ad changed my life, right? There was an ad for a parts driver for White Brothers back in 1985, and I went and filled out an application, and it's crazy, man. But Tom White, he actually interviewed me and gave me a job for $5.50 an hour to be the parts driver at White Brothers, and I was stoked.
Rich.
I just couldn't believe it. Yeah, it was
$5.50
cool,
an hour.
$5.50 an hour, and I tell you, man, I pulled out of the parking lot after he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you the job. We'll try you out." I remember pulling out of the parking lot and just looking at the building, and I said to myself, "I can't freaking believe it, man! I just got a job at White Brothers."
Yeah.
I was so stoked, and I never looked back from there.
For the younger people that maybe listen or read this, that's like a kid now going up to, say, Pro Circuit or Star Yamaha or something, and somebody, "Hey, yeah, you can be our parts guy," or like that's White Brothers and Tom White at the time. Four strokes weren't what they are now, but White Brothers was, four strokes were cool before four strokes were cool, and they were legendary. So yeah, that's huge for a kid like yourself.
It really was, right? And you're right. A lot of the younger generation probably, they think, "Oh, White Brothers, what's that?" And White Brothers, everyone knows today the Western Power Sports and Fly and Parts Unlimited and Tucker Rockies. Well, back in those days, and Tom and his twin brother Dan, they started White Brothers in the 70s, right? And they went on to become, they made their own products, and they went on to become quite a powerful distributor, right? And it turned into a huge business. It really back then. I mean, I won't say it was before its time, but the only one bigger than White Brothers was Parts Unlimited at that time, and it was an amazing company to work for. Some amazing people came out of that building. A dear friend of mine, Donnie Luce, who's with Yamaha now, we worked together at White Brothers, and he likes to refer to a lot of us that came out of that company as we graduated from White Brothers University. And it is really true, man, because you don't have to look far. You can pretty much go anywhere in our business, and people you will cross paths with have either memories of White Brothers or work there, including Donnie and Bob Weber that owns 60 helmets, and just a whole amazing group of people that now took that, the stuff that Tom White taught us back then, and now we kind of, use that in our own business today.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an amazing company, and yeah, it was. I don't know, man. I don't know if there'll ever be another place like it. It was, even though we have W now and we're very fortunate to have it, I still do believe sometimes that, White Brothers went through some changes and eventually the company was sold.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like in a way I'd probably still be there if Tom was still the owner,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was, so just an amazing place to work for.
What were a couple maybe of your favorite stories or a couple of favorite things that you saw through your years there that just stand out? Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots, right?
Okay.
But I'll make it brief. But from the early days, right? I mean, when you get a job in the industry like that, people often say that I want to be in the industry. Well, it doesn't mean you're going to get to be the guy, whatever that means, right? Whether you're the the gear guy or the product, the rider support guy. I mean, it's like, man, you start in the beginning, right? And whether you're a parts driver, cleaning the bathrooms, or working in the warehouse, or shipping, receiving, whatever, you got to start somewhere, right? So there's lots of memories of that era, I guess, for me with the company. But I think highlights would be, we'll fast forward a couple of years when we started our own race program, and we did a lot of four-stroke racing, lo and behold, right? With Doug Dubach and a very, very good friend of mine who was also, I was a mechanic for, Spud Walters was his name. And we did that for many years, doing four-stroke nationals, and that would have been in the late 98, 99, 2000, all the way up to through 2003. So those were really good times for sure. Getting to travel all over the country and racing motorcycles with Spud and our team. And then a couple years after that, something I'm very, very proud of, and I know a lot of people that came from White Brothers are very, very proud of it. We became the official exhaust supplier, White Brothers did, for factory Honda in the beginning of the era of four-stroke, modern four-stroke, right? And it's funny because up in Tom's Museum, there's an ad that we worked on in the, there's a poster of it up in Tom's Museum. And at that time, the slogan was the winningest four-stroke exhaust system in AMA history, because back then we had factory Honda, and I'm very proud to even tell you this story, as are a lot of people. But we had factory Honda, so we had Ricky Carmichael and Nathan Ramsey, we had Kevin Windham, and we also became the factory exhaust supplier to factory Yamaha. So we had Villeman, Chad, Ferry. So it was an amazing time.
Sure,
and, when you think about that, and after eventually our team stopped, for budgetary reasons, whatever, I still got to go to all the races, and it was cool, man. I got to take all the pipes to the races and deliver them to those guys, and amazing memories, Jamie. It really was. And so I think those ones kind of stand out. For me anyway. And it's cool too, right? Because even to this day, we still build some wheels for Villeman for vintage bikes. He does, know, and Chad, we still work with today, and a lot of these guys, and it's just really cool. It's what makes the business kind of fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
The relationships is a big part of what makes it enjoyable. And you mentioned the four-stroke race team, and I want to reiterate that was before the modern era four-strokes, that the younger generation thinks as of four-strokes. They weren't the light, nimble machines that we get now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, in the beginning with Spud, I remember it was 1996, and we rode an XR 400, and we had CR250 forks on it. It actually was a 440 because at that time we were competing against like the Husabergs and the KTMs back then, right? And it was a cool bike to look at, but man, it was heavy. It got super hot, but it did the job, right?
Right.
And then in for a couple of years, right? And then in 1998, when Yamaha came out with the YZ400, I remember we had started a relationship with them on the business side. White Brothers did, and Mike Guerra, who was with Yamaha for many, many years, great guy. They gave us an opportunity to do a little race program on this thing called the Thunder Bike Series, where we raced in stadiums. And it was cool, man. We got like a pre-production YZ400, and Spud and I loaded that thing up in an old Astro van. You remember those, the little ones?
Yeah, yes.
Before Sprinters.
Yeah.
We cinched down the front end, had a couple set of wheels and a couple pipes in our clothes bags, gear bags, and we traveled all over the country doing that. And
how cool!
I mean, it was awesome, man. Yeah, it was really, really cool. So, good times.
Yeah, and I want to jump ahead a little bit. You mentioned already how answering that ad in Cycle News changed your life, taking the job at White Brothers. You also mentioned that, eventually White Brothers was sold. Through this process, because of this job, you meet Tom's daughter, who becomes your wife, Kristen. And years later, you guys start W Wheels. What brought that that job on, like that, or that the idea to do that? What brought that on?
Well, a lot went on in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a fair amount older than my wife.
And you're also,
when I started,
you are basement, as Chris Kiefer will say. We'll tell everybody know that you're basement.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's pretty funny. Yeah, so I'm very lucky, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, when shoot, I'm all over the map here starting, but
sorry.
No, so in the beginning, I worked there, and obviously I knew who Kristen was. I mean, it's kind of weird to look back on it, but she was pretty young then, right? And,
Sure.
And I was an adult, whatever, and whatever. Didn't really think much about it. She would just work part-time on Saturdays and after school, and many, many years later, I mean, she went on to really do some amazing things within White Brothers. She was kind of Tom's right-hand lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was kind of up in those big meetings, and I was down in the race shop, and I loved it, right? Like that, those big boardroom meetings and all that fun stuff. That wasn't really my style. I more liked to be in the race shop, and just things happen, right? And when you're around somebody for so long, we end up dating, and we end up getting married, and now here we are. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we have two kids. An 18-year-old son, Zane, and our daughter Andy is 17. And time flies. But we started dating, and so on and so forth, and a lot went on in between that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many years of still working at the company together, for Tom, and it's, I don't want to seem like we're skipping through anything, because I don't want to miss anything.
No, that's fine.
Jamie. But what happened was, in 2001, there's a long story, and a lot of it's on our website and all that, and people kind of know the history. But in 2001, Tom sold the company. It was, he was tired, and he was kind of burned out. I think a lot of people can relate to that and understand, but he sold the company to an investment group. And, unfortunately, like a lot of those acquisitions, these big corporate companies buy these businesses, and they have their own way of running things. And in the case of White Brothers, I think it's safe to say that it was the wrong way, right? And in a handful of years from the time the company was sold in 2001, I think within 5 years, the company was gone. And so, I had been there 24 years. I've been there a long, long time, right? And I saw the people that I worked with that I mentioned earlier that were amazing to work with and for. People were leaving the company, and I just didn't want to go out like that. So I kind of went out on sort of my terms, if you will, meaning I just gave my notice, and then I got an opportunity to go do some. I don't think I've ever even told you this off the record or in our talks at the races. But when I left the company, I went and worked for a company that did all the Brembo brakes for Supermoto, and a wheel company called Marchesini, which is a mag wheel. That's pretty people that follow MotoGP would know. It's like a mag type wheel. So this might help some of the people listening that they're are curious. So if you remember back in the day when Supermoto got really, really big,
of course,
Troy Lee had a team, and Graves Yamaha had a team, and you might recall it was pretty big at X Games. Whenever you saw any of those teams that had those look like a spoke type of wheel, not a conventional spoke, but more of a mag wheel.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did.
Okay.
So those were all teams that I worked with, and Brembo. If people know Brembo, it's an amazing company, amazing product. Their brakes are, like no other, right? And so that's what I did for about 4 years, and traveled all over the country and actually all over the world for them, and kind of like a brand manager or something like that, I guess, for Brembo and Marchesini. We did kind of get involved in moto. We did some oversized brake kits also in the motocross scene. And then that eventually kind of during we had a recession back in, 2001 one or two. The opportunity came up for us to start our own company with Talon hubs that have been around forever. And, this opportunity came up to basically be the importer for them. And things were getting a little bit tricky with the company we worked for. And, so we made the switch, and lo and behold, man, Dubya was born. So that's kind of how we started it.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Dubya is, in tribute to Tom White, right? W for as in white, W for white. So that's really cool that you guys did that.
Yeah, that's how and my kids to this day tease me if somebody asks me, or if I tell them about, hey, how'd you come up with the name for Dubya? Well, and I'll say it again. So again, my kids are going to laugh, but Dubya is a play off the letter W from White Brothers, right?
I love it.
And that's how we came up with our company name. Yeah, because, John and Kristen's motorcycle company, or John and Kristen's wheel company, or whatever you want to say, not very appealing, right? Just doesn't have a real good twist to it.
It doesn't flow.
Yeah, and I guess all those years of working at White Brothers, we had so many great relationships based around that, the fact that we worked there. So we really wanted to figure out a way to tie the two together, and the name it stuck. The logo kind of stuck, and we haven't looked back since. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the company over the last, 11, 12 years? How long?
Yep, we're coming up next, January, February of this 23 will be our 12th year in business.
Okay, right. So 12 years in, super successful company, at least from the outside, from what, I've heard about it for years, working with multiple factory teams. That's a process. It had to take time to do that. Was there a point during the 11, 12 years that you were like, ooh, this isn't going so well, this is tough? Or did it have a good upward trajectory from the beginning?
Well, as I mentioned, when the opportunity became available to us to start, importing Talon hubs, say, right? And a while back I mentioned about traveling with Spud and loading up the van with a bike and a couple set of wheels. Well, those spare wheels, were Talon, right? So and White Brothers was the importer for Talon, which is how Talon even knew us, right? The brand Talon based in the UK.
Yeah.
But when the opportunity came up, literally we were in a recession, and it's not the best time to start a business, but,
no.
We were able to get a small little building, or like a little unit here in Orange, California, which we're actually still in the same complex. We just expanded a little bit and have a bigger location, but, Tom was kind enough to co-sign for us to get into the building, and it was myself, Kristen. We had one of the girls that we had worked with prior at White Brothers, and our first employee, and there was four of us, and that was it. And so we just started, and if there's a benefit of having so many great relationships, and it's just doing this business for so long, is we were able to quickly at least get a phone call answered, an email answered, or even some of the shops, local shops and mail order companies gave us a chance. And, we're forever grateful for that. And nothing's easy in business, right, Jamie? But, cause you got to work, and you got to work really hard. But, I feel like there were some doors that were open for us that, again, people would take our calls and really give us a chance. And that's what happened. And again, with my background in racing, I believed in the product. I wasn't scared to ask a team to try it and see what they thought. And they were receptive to that. And it I won't say it took off, but, at that time, there wasn't really any companies that just solely focused on wheels, 100% wheels, right? And over the years, we've kind of changed some stuff, and maybe how people see wheels now. I don't know. That's what people have told us. We're doing powder coated spokes, right? And all these crazy color hubs and different anodizing of rims and whatnot, in the beginning, Ronnie Renner, who a lot might know from the day doing Step Up and all that, He was our first guy in the beginning, and shoot, we had like neon orange powder coated spokes, and he did that step up thing for Red Bull on the Santa Monica Pier, and it just kind of took off from there. All of a sudden, there was like this market. People go, "Oh man, I can do colored spokes. Who would have thought that?" And next thing you know, man, we were working with the Degans and Twitches and all these different freestyle athletes, and the cool thing about that is we still work with most of those guys to this day, all these years later. And then the racing side, they don't care about colored spokes or anything like that, but they just race teams, as you know, Jamie, you're around it. They have so much invested in their athletes and their programs, and they have pressures on them from sponsors and all that. One thing we don't want to do is be that one, say, partner, if you will, or a supplier that causes a failure to make them, their sponsors, look bad, right?
Sure, of course.
We don't. And look, just like people say, right? Motors blow up, wheels can fail, and it's going to happen, but we try everything we can, do our very best to try and prevent that. Some things are just out of your control, right?
Of course, yeah. We all have to know that.
Yeah, for sure.
And you just talked about these elite level factory teams that use you, and freestyle guys, but you can't have a business that only caters to that elite level high performance. You also have to cater to the average consumer like myself, and you guys do that. You have multiple lines of products to fit most any budget and riding conditions, I believe.
And that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot in the industry would say it depends on the brand, right? If we're talking soft goods or hard parts. I love to be involved in racing. I'm still a huge fan, kind of a dork that way. I mean, I can go to a race on Saturday night, come home and watch it when I get home at midnight, right? I think a lot of us are like that. But at the end of the day, for our business, and really any business, racers, they're amazing at what they do, and I don't want to beat a dead horse there, but at the end of the day, for us, the dealers, our customers, I mean, we treat everybody the same way. The wheels they're all built the same way, and I do say this, that a lot of times in our production room, oftentimes our production team, they might not know that they're building wheels for Jeremy McGrath or Jason Anderson or Jamie Guida, or the guy that just goes out to the desert for the weekend, just having fun with his kids. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
It's very important, and we do look at it like that. We treat them all the same way, and those are the folks, the dealers, and those customers that really keep us in business, right? Because racing's great to be involved in. We're very thankful for that. But if all we did was rely on racing to keep us in business and keep the lights on, as they say, we probably wouldn't have made it very far, right?
No, I think you're right. Yeah, it's definitely the grassroots group of people that keeps the industry alive.
Yeah, for sure. And as I mentioned, ways back, just having that, being able to reach out to the Chaparrals or the Motorsports or any of those folks, right? Any of the mail order companies or any of the dealerships, local or wherever they may be. The fact that they gave us a chance, right? They didn't have to order from us, but again, they knew us from back then. I think we always try to treat everybody fairly and honestly, and they give us a chance. So, and it's nice to say that they're still our customers today, and that customer base has grown, really globally now, right? Because we do ship out of the country as well. Because there's people all over the world that ride motorcycles, right? We all know that. It's not just in the U.S. And so yeah, it's been we've been pretty lucky with all that.
That's great. I'm happy for you guys. I want to finish up with the topic of the World Vet Motocross Championship. The 38th annual event is coming up at Glen Helen. Your father-in-law Tom White started this. What was he? What was why was he so passionate about this event in particular?
Well, I can speak for myself, and my wife's got her own voice, but when it comes to this. But really, the vet race started as the White Brothers Vet World Motocross Championships, and there's a lot of discussion about everybody giving themselves the title world this, world that, and I understand it. I do. Maybe I'm a little more passionate about it because we've talked a lot about Tom White, and Tom, he gave me my first job, right? He became my father-in-law, right? Many years later, he became my kid's grandpa, and he was my friend. And he started this thing 38 years ago, right? And that's a long time to have any kind of a race on an annual basis, right? He just started it. Obviously, that we talked a little bit about the background and four strokes and all that, and Tom loved racing, right? So he started it back then, and actually, Dubya, we are now starting. This will be our 9th year as the title sponsor. And really, Jamie, the reason we're not in the promotions business. Do I know anything about running a race? No. Have I learned a little bit? Sure. Do we make money doing this? Not a dime, right? We do this to honor Tom. Tom, it's coming up on 5 years that we lost Tom to cancer, and we really do it to honor his legacy, and he loved this event so much, and quite honestly, that's why we still do it, because it's a lot of work.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And I think Tom was very proud too, and I know we are, that the race has become what it's become, right? Even I made some notes because sometimes I forget this stuff, and I was asking my wife, and pre-COVID times, right? There was 22 different countries that attended this race from 31 different states here in America. That's quite a following, right? So, they say a world championship event should be multiple events and all that. Well, I'm never going to stop saying, this is the World Vet Motocross Championships, because I think that doing it that long with that many people coming from all over the world, I stand by that. I think that Tom was very proud of what this race became, and we're proud of what it's become also, right? So, it's an amazing time. It's cool. All these people come and from all over the world, and our motto is, we just want everybody, on Sunday when they pack up to go home, they're tired, they're sore, they might be walking a little bit funny, but they had a hell of a good time, and they got to experience really an iconic racetrack, which is a whole nother discussion sometime down the road, in Glen Helen. It's a world-class racetrack. I know we don't have any world-class events, right? They don't, I should say. I shouldn't speak like I'm a part of it, but there's lots of reasons why it's there. Obviously, Tom started it not there. He actually started a different facility, and then it moved there to accommodate all the people that would come, right? So it's just become really a huge thing. Heck, I think last year was a record turnout, and I think the way things are going, as you know, from all kinds of racing these days and attendance figures, and I was just at Red Bull Straight Rhythm last weekend. There were so many people there. It was insane, right? We're expecting a huge turnout and hopefully a good weekend of racing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's November 4th through the 6th, this just a couple weeks away. I'll be there. Steve Mathis is kind of running and hiding from my challenge, I think. But, yeah, I think we'll get it together. We're going to have a little fun battle. He acts like he's not that worried about it, but I think he might be in the back of his mind. That's not really what's important. The other thing that I want to bring up, though, is every year you have like a guest of honor that you come out and comes out to the event. You guys kind of honor them. And why don't you tell everybody who this year is? Because I can't wait.
Yeah, so this year it's a group thing where we get together, myself, my wife, Dr. Feldkamp, the owner of Glen Helen, Lori, his son Buddy, and we all kind of throw around some names on who would be a great recipient. And the award, by the way, is called the Edison Dye Lifetime Achievement Award. Some of the previous recipients have been over the years. This is an award that Tom White created to recognize people that have contributed to the sport of motocross, the accomplishments on the track and whatnot. And, the likes of like Rick Johnson, Roger DeCoster, even going way back, Torsten Holman, Brad Lackey, You name it. There, if you go on the website, you'll see all these just iconic figures that have been inducted. Mitch Payton, we inducted him a couple of years ago. Jody Weisel from Motocross Action, who's has always been a huge part of Tom White's life, and certainly a friend of ours today with Motocross Action there. But anyway, this year we're really stoked. Jeremy McGrath is going to receive that honor, and it's really cool. He's pumped. His mother and father, Jack and Ann, are coming. I'm sure I talked to Mitch at Red Bull Straight Rhythm. Mitch is going to come, and the cool thing too is Jeremy's going to race, right? So that's pretty sweet.
Nice.
And, and a little backstory to that: when we nominated him, and then we made the call to him. When Jeremy was a novice back in the day, again, this is going to show how old I am, Jamie, but he was still like a novice intermediate. And if you look back on some of those old pictures when he was on an old Honda, White Brothers did his suspension. And, and now you fast forward all these years, right? We're well into our 50s now, right? And I'm proud and honored to say that Jeremy still runs W wheels on his Cowies.
Very cool.
So it's just, isn't that cool, man? So
yes.
Jeremy's coming, and I think there'll be a lot of, of folks that helped him along the way that'll show up. And this year we're going to do the party, and I hope you can stay. I think you always stay with Kiefer and stuff, but I hope you can stay because we're going to do a little party Saturday night in that little rock garden area right next to Bud's Museum there. And we're going to do it Saturday evening. And that was a change that we made also, so we don't have to shut down the racing during the ceremony on Sunday, because we always lose that hour of daylight on Sunday. So we're going to do a little party. 805 Beer is going to sponsor it. It's going to be kind of like a little just meet and greet, but I don't call it a cocktail party because I don't really go to those things. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just shoot
it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a really good time. And as far as Mathis goes, I don't know, man. Where did I see you? I saw you at Redbud. I saw you at that golf tournament thing, and I don't know, man. I gotta say, I kind of chuckle a little bit. But you're looking pretty lean, and I hear all this stuff. You're cycling, and you're riding more than ever, and I don't know, man. Maybe Steve's just kind of like playing it down and just going to surprise you with something. I don't know, but
we'll find out.
I know this. There's going to be a lot of Vital listeners and a lot of Pulp listeners that are going to be there and or monitoring social media and to see what happens, because there's going to be some shit talk that goes down on Monday night.
There certainly will be. I cannot wait, man. Well, it's going to be a blast. Just 2 more weeks, man, and we're coming up on it, and I believe I will be running W wheels on the Husky 350. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, we're stoked, man. And listen, I appreciate it. This has been really fun to chat with you. I always like talking to you, whether we're talking for business or not,
Yes, sir.
I've gotten to see your transition a little through the industry, and so congratulations on all that. Yeah, I can tell you're really enjoying it, and I'm really happy for you, dude, and looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And if people want to know more about the race, look, I'm not a infomercial here, but just go on Glenn Helen's website. Yep. It'll explain everything.
It's all there
as far as practice and the moto format and all that stuff. And we'll be out there obviously with the display. So, come by and say hello. And obviously I'll see you multiple times, but we hope everybody can make it, whether to race or just come out. And there's really nothing going on the first week of November. And typically the weather's pretty good, and you never know who you might run into out there, right? You might see Jeremy McGrath, Jamie Guida, or who knows, right?
Yeah,
should be a good time, dude.
The very first one I ever went to, I got to meet Doug Dubach, Chicken. I'm trying to remember who else was. There was a few guys that I got to meet, so it was pretty cool. I was relatively new to the industry at the time, so it is very neat to see Glenn Helen, to see some of the stars, that we remember watching. So yeah, everybody come out. John, thanks, man, for taking about 30, 40 minutes of your day out for us, and we'll have this Vital MX article up here soon with you, and I appreciate it.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much, and it was great to catch up with you. And hey, everybody out there, thank you very much for everything they've done to help W and my wife and I and the whole team at W here, because W is not just she and I, right? It's a whole group of great guys and girls here. So thanks, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
All right, John. Thank you, buddy.
Take care of yourself, man.
You too.